All right. Awesome. So I'm joined here today by Oscar Martinez. Super excited. I've been following him for quite some time. I appreciate you being here. And as I've mentioned to you before this, I think I'm going to learn a lot from this episode too. So thanks again for being here.
No, yeah, thanks for having me, man. Always great to, speak with other sellers and just learn some things too.
Yeah, totally. I'm constantly learning things, listening to different podcasts, connecting with different sellers. So I'm excited. And something I like to do, I always like to start off with kind of your origin story. How long have you been doing this? How'd you get started? Is there a story that really turned the page about something with like a bad boss that I think I saw on your feed one day? I'd love to
Right.
hear that. Yeah.
Yes, so let's break it down, right?
Yep.
So, I really started opening my account in 2019. So I started with Amazon wholesale drop shipping, which is the only legit way of drop shipping on Amazon. Anything else, you'll get, your account shut down. But I started in 2019, did it a little bit for the rest of that year. I didn't take it serious though. I was just trying
Yeah.
to do that, some crypto stuff, stock market stuff. So I was trying to just do, everything. but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so that first year I kind of just played it off. Then moving into 2020, the pandemic hit, and then I saw a lot of my dead inventory really flying off. So from there, I kind of just decided to take it a bit more serious. I did have issues with wholesalers drop shipping, so I kind of shifted more into like the RAOA model.
Okay.
And before that, I actually did some regular wholesale as well, but I didn't have as much capital starting up, so I kind of put a pause on it. But yeah, so I did a little RAOA, tested it a bit more. But it wasn't until like 2021 where I really decided to take this business model more serious, just because, I was having issues with my boss on my job at that time. And I really hated the feeling of basically being in a position where I couldn't control certain aspects, of the
Yeah.
job. And so as soon as that clicked into me, I was like, yeah, I definitely got to do something else. And I was thinking of quitting that job and moving to a different job, but at the same time, it was like, I mean, the same thing could happen here or anywhere else. I'd really, I'd go.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? This Amazon thing has been doing a little bit of work on it. Let me take it, full throttle and really see where it goes from there. So
Yeah. So some that you're by far you're the only person I've ever heard that went straight into wholesale drop shipping. So tell me like how did that even come across your plate or your radar? How did you even know that was a thing?
yeah, so I mean, at the time, I was looking for different, side hustles, just doing some stuff because I was already doing a little bit eBay before that, but just like
Yep.
for extra little cash. And
Right.
then so I stumbled upon a channel by my boy Noah Mensis, and
Okay.
he does this full time. So I saw a few of his videos, took his course that he had at the time, and yeah, I mean, it looked really legit because you hear about drop shipping from China, Alibaba, and all that.
Right.
And I kind of already had it just someone that was really fake and not authentic. But with him, it seemed legit because he was actually talking about like LLCs, EIN numbers, sales
Yeah.
permit, something you don't really hear from anybody really. And so, yeah, I decided to dive into it, and I opened accounts of wholesalers that literally requested these documents. And so that's when I knew it was a legit thing. So
And just to be clear, when you say wholesale drop shipping, is it someone on Amazon places an order and the wholesaler is sending it to their door like FBM, if you will, or they're just shipping it all to Amazon on your behalf for
uh, like
FBA?
like the first one you mentioned, basically
Yeah.
like some FBM, like hands
Okay.
off FBM in a way.
Okay. So that's how you got your start on Amazon. Um, and then I imagine so you're doing your other full-time job, which you saw I want to control my own destiny, which I think so many people,
Mhm.
can relate to. And yeah, you leave one bad job, you're always at the mercy of the job ultimately. So for somebody that's super driven like you are, why not basically control your own destiny?
Right.
So okay, you move out of that and then you get started and then so you have some issues with the drop selling. Tell me about RA, your experience with that, OA, and kind of like what that path looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, I joined the group Hustle Buddies ran by Nathan Jackson. Shout out to him. He was
Yep.
definitely a big help in basically helping me lay down a lot of the foundations. So yeah, I followed him, his guidance, let's say I follow him. What's the other guy? Chris Anderson.
Anderson. Yeah, yeah,
Chris Anderson. I got him confused with Chris Grant.
yeah.
And Cody Keppel, shout out to him too, and just a bunch
Yep.
of other people in the space. So yeah,
Yeah.
just doing some retail arbitrage during the time. So literally after a 12-hour plus shift at my job, I would go to Walmart, go to Target, go to HEB because I'm here in Texas,
Okay.
and really just pick up all these products and literally go home. And
Yeah.
so and then at the
I
same
love
time I
it.
was doing a little bit OA before it was really called online arbitrage like it is today. I just kind of did it, just buying
Yeah.
from the website, which back then, since I don't know if a lot of people know this, but during those times, you could order from Walmart up to like 99 units per order.
Wow.
Uh, so I was definitely doing some of that, but not, of course, they limit that.
And when was this, like year wise?
2020, I believe.
Okay, yeah, so not all that long ago, and I mentioned this to you. I've had quite a few people on here. I feel like so many of us have gone through the Hustle Buddies farm system. Like I I just have this theory that a lot of people during COVID started doing a lot of
Uh,
research and they were there at the perfect time, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And like they were a very legitimate group, but like so many successful sellers I know have had their hand involved with Hustle Buddies, which is kind of interesting.
yeah, I agree.
By the way, so you're in Texas. Have you ever considered or have you ever done RA from Bucky's, the gas station that has like a worldwide phenomenon? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I have a few times. I haven't done it in a while because like the closest one to me is like an hour or so. So
Oh, okay.
it's a long drive to go back and forth picking up product like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, Bucky's is just crazy. I recently felt like I was doing a road trip or something maybe a year or two ago, and everyone talked about it. And I would see people, there's a cult-like following. They have shirts, hats, mugs, and I'm like, it's a gas station, but what am I missing? And then I went to it. I was like, all right, I get it now. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So, but I feel like that could be a good place for people where they have them to like do okay sourcing, you know?
Oh yeah. Just a heads up though, I do see them expanding to more states.
Oh
So
yeah,
be
totally.
be be wary of that before those products end
Yep.
up on elites list.
Yeah. So okay, so RA, OA, I imagine we're going well for you or well enough to say, hey, this Amazon thing is working, right?
Mhm.
So I could be mistaken, but you're primarily all wholesale, correct?
Trying
Now?
to.
Okay.
I'm still a bit in OA, but I'm definitely trying to shift into wholesale with this new account that I'm trying to open with.
Okay, perfect. So this is where I really want to start picking your brain a little. You know, I've talked to a lot of RA and OA sellers, a lot of natural progression. You start with RA, you do OA, you don't have to go to stores. It takes more money, less profit margin, but more profit, all that stuff. Wholesale is something that's really interesting to me and I want to learn more about. And so I guess first off, let's start with why. Why make the shift from RA OA to trying to focus on wholesale?
Yeah, so I mean, it's always been something I've wanted to do for the longest, since I've seen guys like Watch Me Amazon, Amazon Lit, like
Yeah.
just seeing them run their warehouses and stuff. So it's always something that I've been wanting to do in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, just like you mentioned earlier, not having to drive anywhere, you get your products shipped all to you. No worries about any order limits, if
Right.
any. Now there, of course, there's some manufacturing issues. So, but aside from that, it's still you get still better quantities versus like with OA or RA sometimes. Uh,
Right.
and just being able to scale like that, right? So it's easier to scale, spend your money much faster, and yeah, just everything else in between, really.
Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of what I figured and makes sense. And I think some things to me that are really enticing about it, it's like, for one, I have to go hunting every single day for OA, you know?
Right.
If you build a big enough and continue to build your catalog with wholesale, it's kind of rinse and repeat, I would imagine. But I do want to ask you, what do you think are some of the drawbacks or everything has pros and cons, right? Is it,
Right.
for instance, is it true? Would I think that the margins are a lot slimmer in wholesale or not necessarily?
For the most part, they can be. With OA, RA always will have the higher margins out of all three
Yeah,
models. OA, yeah, they trim down a bit. But with wholesale, yeah, I mean, because you're replenishing a lot of these products, you have to negotiate some discounts. And even sometimes with those discounts, there's only so much you can really squeeze out of the pricing.
Right.
And not to mention how much capital you have, to negotiate with as well. If I have $1,000 and someone else has $100,000, there's no way I'm going to compete with that seller as far
Sure.
as the pricing. But I mean, as far as margins, it just really depends a lot on the products themselves too. Some products we'll find similar to OA, and then other products that's a little bit harder to get will find higher margins with those products as well. So I mean, just like any model, kind of really just depends.
Yeah. So do you have a ROI percentage that you require, or there's always exceptions to the rules, of course, but like, do you have like a gold standard, if you will?
Yeah, for most products, we try to shoot for at least $2, 10% ROI on the low end.
Okay.
And yeah, like you said, it just really depends. If it's a very fast moving ASIN, we might go lower on the profit on there, but the ROI I'll probably just stick to it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, no, that's yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I did RA Hustle Buddies, hey, strive for 100% ROI. Then I
Yeah,
get into OA and it's like, hey, strive for, 30% is pretty good, right? And again, there's always exceptions to the rule. And then hearing that, it's surprising, but I could totally see, I think it comes down to more of there's not one way to do this. And if you have the capital, like it all comes down to profit, in my opinion, not profit margin. Profit margin is important on like the decision making process per item, right?
yeah,
Like in the big scheme of things, if you have the money, ultimately you just want to make the most amount of money with a business model that works for whatever your goals are, in my opinion.
right, exactly.
So, but I do think it's also worth noting, in case anyone is new, using those three examples, 100%, 30%, 10%. I mean, literally, just imagine what orange bar differences could be on an Instagram post versus a profit. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody whatsoever. I just like to point out, it's not always apples to apples. Not that you should play the comparison game anyway, but like, you
Right.
know, I think it could be very discouraging if you're doing RA and you're like, oh my gosh, how does this person do 200K in sales? And it's like, you're not playing the same game. You're just in the same arena.
Right. And,
So,
and one thing also, that people need to be aware of is, you compare a wholesaler versus like a retail arbitrage person. You see 100K revenue month from both sellers, but you'll notice the wholesaler's probably at a lower margin than the RA. But
right.
also the amount of time of and work that it takes is higher with the RA person versus with the
Yeah,
wholesaler.
totally.
Like with wholesale, you can just buy the products, have them sent, and you're basically done with that supplier for a decent
Right.
amount of time. With RA, you're out there every single day, like you mentioned earlier, hunting
Yep.
for the next product.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've spoken to some really successful RA people. I don't know if you follow Sarah's FBA
Mm.
or Tracy from the Villages, those folks, the
Yeah,
other Alexa. I mean, their sales and their margins are astronomical, but they put in the work. Like that is not,
yeah,
so like they're working their butts off, well deserved. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's admirable. But if someone's trying to do this on the side, nights and weekends, like you're probably not going to have that type of business model, which is fine. It's you got to test it out and figure out what works for you.
yeah, exactly.
All right. So what I want to ask you now, I want to get into the wholesale, and this for me is genuinely learning as well. So, you're doing RA, you're OA. How do you even decide before now? I know you can go to Google, type in, hey, grocery distributor near me, grocery wholesaler near me, et cetera, et cetera. But for you, like, how do you even decide we're going to start with this product or this brand, or do you do it that way? Do you have success first with that product with RA and OA and say, oh wow, I've had success with this brand, with this category, whatever. Tell me through like that initial process of how you even decide to seek that out.
Yeah, so like you said earlier, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this, right? So there's
Right.
no really 100% right way, because I've done it in various ways. Like you mentioned earlier, if you're doing well with some products, OA, RA, and you see that the volume's there, you could definitely start reaching out to like the brand of that product. So like, let's say, I don't know, what's a brand like Kraft Cheese or something like that.
Mhm.
You can reach out to them. Obviously, they're not going to open an account with you because none of us are that big. but you can always ask like, hey, can I get a list of distributors, wholesalers? And now you can get very specific with them and be like just in general, or you can ask for all the distributors in your state if that helps. Which I personally like to go with state just because it's more local,
Yeah.
and they'll either uh, take you to someone who does have that information, or they'll email it to you and they'll give you a list of just suppliers that you can reach out to. So
Interesting.
that's
So using, I think you said craft cheese, right?
yeah.
Just as the example. So do you literally call? Do you email or you go to their site and just, what's that like?
I prefer to call if possible.
Okay.
It's always better to call if you can, just because they can hear an actual person.
Yeah,
Because if you send them an email, they get hundreds of emails every
right.
day, and 9 out of 10 times they probably won't even see yours.
What department or person or title are you looking to get in touch with when you do that?
Yeah, so if I'm on the phone, I'm just like, hello, can I get in touch with someone who's in charge of opening wholesale accounts? No,
Okay.
just plain and simple, and from there
Yep.
they'll direct you.
Okay, cool. And so going back to like how you would choose crafts to begin with, sometimes it's because you've sold it, other times it's just on a whim, like, hey, I've just thought of this type of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I mean,
Yeah,
like a lot of it comes from testing products though. So if you see a
yeah,
brand that's doing good for you, then chances are a lot of the other products are doing well as
right.
well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now you have a list of wholesalers in your area, whether again, Googling, reaching out to the brand directly, which to be honest, I didn't even think about that in order to get the list. So now you're calling them as well, or you're emailing them.
I'm calling everybody.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. No,
I
I think that's smart.
because I know a lot of people are scared to call, hearing the no and stuff, but you're really better off calling if possible.
Yep. And tell me, what does that sound like? So you get the person on the phone. What are you saying?
Yeah, so if I get the sales rep that I need on the phone, then I'm just like, hey, I'm interested in opening a wholesale account with you guys. I have a seller's permit on hand, ready to go. What do I need in order to open this account with you guys? And it helps also if you have like example the craft cheese. It also helps to tell them like, hey, I'm looking, for craft cheese, Parmesan 8 ounce product, because then they know exactly what you're looking for and they know that you're looking for this specific product. So they kind of know that you know what you're doing, even though you don't know what you're doing.
Right. It gives off a sense of credibility right away, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so from there, how often does Amazon get brought up by them or I assume you never bring it up and I'm curious about them.
Yeah. So I don't bring it up right away. But it just depends. So like on a different conversation, I'll be like, hey, we're a high six-figure business. We're a distribution network selling on multiple platforms online. I never say Amazon specifically, that's just our main, channel.
Yeah.
But I was mentioning like we sell on Mercari, eBay, Amazon, Walmart. We're working on our own website soon too. And so that kind of, gives them like a little heads up, like, okay, this person knows what they're doing. And that's how I opened my account the other day with the one that I'm working with right now, just by saying that exact thing.
Yeah. You're not actually planning on opening your own site, are you?
Uh, I might just to open
Yeah.
more accounts, but in the meantime, I'm just kind of bullcrapping it.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I guess I could see doing it, for that proof online, social proof. And by the way, not judging at all. I'm just curious. But yeah, okay, that makes sense. And okay, and then how many times do these people ask you directly, do you sell on Amazon? And if so, is that a deal breaker?
Yeah, some of them, I mean, it varies, right? So if it's
Yeah.
a direct brand, they'll tell you straight up or not, they'll allow you to sell on Amazon. Uh,
Okay.
with distributors, wholesalers, they'll tell you, well, some of them will tell you if some of their brands, they don't allow sellers to sell them on Amazon, but they'll have other products that you can potentially sell too. So it just really depends.
Okay. And all right, so you're talking to them at this point, you introduce yourselves. How many percentage wise, or if you call 100 wholesalers, or how many do you have to call, let's say, to open a wholesale account?
That's hard for me. It's weird for me to say because my first account, I opened it right away.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so I could take even just one, honestly.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah, I
guess.
mean, like even at grand scheme, if you're contacting 100 suppliers, I'd say at least 10 to 20 of them will say yes to you.
Okay. So 10 to 20% is a realistic number. So then at that point, it becomes a numbers game. And then of those 10 to 20 out of those 100, how many of them do you find have inventory that makes sense for you? Not saying every SKU, just like
Right.
if you have 20, if you have, for a round number, let's say 10, there's 10 wholesalers you're working with that are new. How many of them are you going to have products that you can profitably sell on Amazon that meet your criteria?
It depends what they have, really. So if they have
Right.
a lot of the products that I'm looking for, or certain brands, then I'll try to go to those specifically versus some of the other ones that may not have as much, just because I already know what I want to sell, right? So
Yeah.
I'll kind of filter that out first. Another way to filter through them is running through if they give you a catalog like a spreadsheet, you could run it through a software like Scan Unlimited,
Okay.
and just run the numbers a bit, see if you find anything that meets your criteria. Because if you can find stuff that's break even or even a small loss, then you have a little bit of wiggle room to negotiate, hopefully down the road. Uh,
Yeah.
but if you don't find anything, then chances are you might not want to work with them, because even if you negotiate with them, I mean, it's not like you're going to get 50% off for some of these
Right.
products.
Right.
So it still probably won't be worth it.
How often is it that you go through the catalog and you're like, none of these are going to work?
Uh, Most of them probably, if I'm being
Really?
honest.
So
Yeah.
so the majority don't work. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like,
That's
honestly,
interesting. You know, it's funny because that's such a blessing and a curse. Something I've definitely, not just in life, but Amazon specifically. If you're willing to do the stuff that other people aren't willing to do, you're going to gain a competitive advantage. So I would imagine a lot of people quit with all these rejections, no's, catalogs that don't work. And it's just like a numbers game. Fewer and fewer people are going to stick around to the ones that do work. And then when you find the ones that do work and you place multiple orders, now you have leverage to get even better prices on something that's already working for you.
yeah. And
That's
you're right,
cool.
what you said earlier, just hearing the no's, most people will quit at that point, so they don't ever get to the catalog part.
Yeah. I hear you. How many are you calling current day? Like how many wholesalers are you calling a day, a week, whatever? Do you have a goal or a feel for that?
I mean, if you're just starting out, I would try as many as possibly. Uh, but me right now, I have like 3, 4 main suppliers, so I'm not really trying to reach out to newer
Okay.
ones. Just because I mean, I'm not. It's not like I have millions of dollars to spend on them either. So
Right.
I don't want to end up over promising them something that I can't promise myself.
Yeah. What percentage of your business would you say is wholesale?
I say 70 to 80%.
Okay, the reason I asked, that's really interesting because for those people listening, if I'm not mistaken, you just had like 130K month sales for May. 70 to 80% of that is wholesale, and that's only coming from 3 or 4 accounts, right?
Yeah,
So
I think most of that came from one actually. So that's
wow,
crazy.
I didn't realize how deep you could go with a supplier like that. So that's really interesting. I didn't realize it only took that few. That's interesting.
And that's another thing too, right? Is that people think you need like 1,000 suppliers to make those type
Right.
of numbers. When the truth is, you probably need 10 or less to really grow a full business.
Yeah. Okay.
Most wholesalers that I've networked with, they don't have more than like 10 suppliers max, if that many.
Interesting. Yeah. I could see that. I mean, I think like anything, the better relationships you have, like that's only going, instead of having 10 best friends, if you have all your attention on one best friend, your relationship's going to be better. You're going to help each other out, et
Yeah,
cetera, et cetera.
exactly.
Cool. All right, awesome. Do you have any specific categories that you really like for wholesale, and for any particular reason?
I mean, my personal favorite is probably health, beauty, makeup, or groceries. Those are the main ones for me that I like to purchase wholesale. Uh,
Okay,
Main reason is just because of the low return rate. My
right.
return rate is very low compared to a
Yeah.
lot of other sellers, so that's also why I like it.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that new sellers should, just as a random example and not knocking anyone, but like Nike is such an easy low-hanging fruit to use as an example. It's very attractive. It's like, oh, I can sell Nike, this and that, but like apparel is brutal on returns, relative to, I always say like a K cup, a K cup 10 pack, right? There can't be anything wrong with it. I mean, it might have got damage in transit, but if the right thing is sent and the expiration date is good, it's not like a battery or mechanism. It's like, and not only that, they consume it and then they buy more of it. So I'm with you. Grocery is really how I got my start with RA. So I'm a huge advocate for that. And I like health and beauty a lot too, for the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I noticed, so you handle all of your prep and pack, is that correct?
We do it in-house, but I do have 2 employees, sometimes
Okay.
3, that does all the prepping though.
Okay. So why not prep center? For those people wondering at home, I'm curious about that, myself included.
Yeah, so I mean, because long term, I want a warehouse regardless. So
Mhm.
I kind of don't want to put myself in a position where I get too fancy with the prep center, getting used to the kind of like, I guess you could say, freedom of it. Because I know
Yeah.
if I want a warehouse, I'm not gonna have that as, I mean, not up front at least. Uh,
Yeah.
but that, and then I just like to handle our own prep, be more in control of it, how many units we're actually receiving, our turnover time as well. If we can get inventory today, we'll have it fully prepped tomorrow, heading up the next day after that.
Yeah.
I know there's some prep centers that could probably do that, but at the same time, I'd rather us turn it over much faster.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. So to give you some context, when I did RA, I did it all myself, packing and prep. And I started OA and I moved states where sales tax. And I did a lot myself. And then it was like sales tax arbitrage. It almost didn't make sense for me financially to do my prepping and packing in a tax state and the time. And I have a really good prep center now, and I really like them. But I will say something that's really become crystal clear to me. Regardless, I mean, they're great on checking, making sure it's easy to see the reconciliation. I can't emphasize enough how time is of the essence with online arbitrage, and
Oh
that a
yeah,
product that's profitable today is not profitable tomorrow. And so when I like to seek out of stock items a lot, and so your window is really small. And as great as my prep center is, I've come to realize if time is of the essence, I have to prep it and pack it myself and have that control over getting it today and it's out today. Even if I want, I can even list it FBM if there's no competition as soon as
yeah,
I receive it. So I do think that prep centers have their time in place. And again, there's a lot of different business models and lifestyles around this, which make it so great. But if time is of the essence, a prep center is just not going to cut it most of the time. So I think that's a really valuable take that you have. And while that's top of mind, I wanted to share my experience with that too.
oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, and especially going into Q4, you definitely want to think about that as much as possible because if you're getting volume, they're gonna get volume. So they definitely
Right.
can't promise you probably not even a week's turnover rate.
Yeah. No, totally. And something else talking about prepping and packing, you're the only person I see that does this. I think it's called LTV, less
Oh,
than
LTL,
load.
yeah, less
LTL,
than
yeah,
load.
yeah. LT and so like you're shipping things on pallets. Tell me about that. Why is it cheaper? That's one of those things, like even 3 years in, I never even considered it.
Yeah, so I mean, why it's cheaper, I personally don't know. I think that comes down to the
Just the
carriers and
bulkness, I'm
Amazon.
assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But it
think
is cheaper. It is cheaper.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Because I've done shipments SPD that will charge us $200 plus, and had I put that on the pallet instead, it would have been probably 100 or less even.
Oh wow. And so like how does that work? There's just like, hey, every pallet can be this size. And so like do you use inventory lab or like what do you use to create shipments?
Yeah, so we use a mix of inventory labs and 2D workflow. So
Okay.
and inventory labs is meant just to keep up with our numbers, like our P&Ls and all that. So that's the only reason we integrated with 2D. Otherwise, you could just do all the prepping with 2D only. But yeah, so we'll create the shipment and inventory labs, add all the information. We'll turn off the box contents and everything. And then once we're done there, we'll close it, move on to 2D workflow. And it's easier with 2D workflow because when you're creating shipments normally like SPD, especially if you're using inventory labs, you have to like upload the shipment and then you have to like manually one by one kind of like
Right.
you don't know what box you can kind of put it in, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have to just guess at the end.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
with 2D, you can prep and pack your stuff away at the same time. So let's say if I have my phone or whatever, well, if I had 100 of these, I can go ahead on 2D, add 100 into one box, close that box, it'll print me the box label, we'll slap it on the box, put it on the pallet, and we're done with that box
Yeah.
completely.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, that's it's funny. 2D is like I still think about this all the time. There's so many things I still don't know about. So, and like 2D is one of them. I've never, I guess, had to deal with it or whatever, but like, but I feel like that is more of a wholesale thing, isn't it?
It could work for SPD, and honestly, if you're
Yeah.
using a prep center, I would even advise them to consider using it as well because it will speed
Yeah.
up their prepping.
I think they do actually, now that you mention it. It's kind of one of those out of sight, out of mind. So, you know, you touched upon you have a couple people that help you, you know, pack and prep, and something I commend you on, and I think we have the same mindset is like I've seen you post online about treating your people properly, you know, incentivizing, it's, you know, working with them, all those things. Like, where does that come from? Just were you raised that way? Is it remembering what it's like to have crappy bosses and good bosses, and like where does that come from?
Well, that's a great question. So, I mean, it comes a little bit from both, right? I mean, both my parents are pretty respectful. They taught me that growing up. But also, yeah, like you mentioned earlier, from the job, kind of see how it was to be treated as an employee when
Yeah.
you're busting your butt. You don't really see the recommendations for it or anything. And so, yeah, I definitely got a lot of that from that. So that's why, whenever I can, I give raises to my preppers or my sourcers. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
How did you find them, by the way?
the preppers.
Yeah.
Oh, just family.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's funny you say that. My mom's in Florida, and for some people don't know this, but certain categories are tax-free in Florida. It's not a tax-free state, but like vitamins and supplements. So I send her all of that stuff, and she's my prep center just for that stuff. And it's like it's so great because not only can you be real with them and like, hey, but like also, why not pay them instead of a stranger if they're going to do just as good of a job, and you can have that open communication. I say that to say for anybody that's looking, I think considering your family is like a great way for them to make a couple $100,000 a month, and you have someone you can trust.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, especially if it helps giving someone a job that they probably normally can't get like that. So it
Yeah.
definitely helps like that.
Totally. And going back to the paying people properly and taking responsibility. Um, it's funny, I've put a lot of thought into this. I have a small business outside of Amazon, and it's like not only does it feel good just as a human to treat people well and um to like do right, not pay what you can get away with, pay what you can afford type of thing, but it's good business. Like these people are going to be happier. They're going to work harder for you. They're going to care more. And it's like if you had turnover, for instance, and had to retrain someone every 3 to 4 months, that lack of um, you know, efficiency would cost you money in its own right. Like I've
Yeah.
never understood why people don't see it that way, but a lot of people don't. They get penny wise and pound foolish. So props to you on doing it the right way. At least what I think to be the right way. Um, I'm curious as far as I always like to ask people as we start to wind down here. Uh, I know no 2 days are the same. I know that, but like how many hours are you putting in a day? How many hours sourcing in a week? If you can just give me like a general idea of like what your day, week, what does it look like? Like how busy are you? Because a lot of people I think have this idea you could do this in 1 to 2 hours, make 100 grand, and it's like it's not quite that easy. So I'm curious to hear it from you.
Yeah. So in the beginning, there's no way you're gonna hit those numbers that fast with little time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, these days, I mean, I just moved one of my sourcers into a purchaser for our inventory.
Okay.
So because buying inventory alone took me 4 to 8 hours, sometimes a day, because we buy so much in volume. But these days, I mean, last week it was looking pretty smooth.
Yeah.
We will work. Well, my preppers would work. 1 or 2 days out of the week because we had extra help, so it kind of helped speed up that process.
Mhm.
Uh, but as far as me personally, I'm just waking up, get on Seller Central, Inventory Labs, look at my numbers real quick. I go over the leads that my sources provide me. I just go through them, check them, put the amount of quantity that I want my purchaser to buy the next day. And in a way, that's kind of it for today. Just handling all that, any tax stuff that I may have going on, or
Yeah.
all in all, I'm probably spending less than 5 hours, probably
Yeah.
not even 4 a day now these days.
Yep. No, that's great. And as far as like the inventory, it just crossed my mind as you were saying that. Do you like keep a par level basically when you do wholesale? Like, hey, this item, after knowing it, I've sold it for 6 months. We always want to, when we dip below 50 in stock, we order another 30, or you know what I mean? Is it kind of like that?
We go based on what inventory led tells us how much we sold. So like I'll go one ASIN by ASIN and see how much we sold in the past month. Like right now I have a product that it wants us to restock 1,000 units. So
Yeah.
that's what it's telling us. I'll go back, check the listing real quick to make sure it's still good, keep it
Yeah.
charts, no increase in sellers or anything. Then I'll just go ahead and purchase that amount that it's notifying me.
Something I'm curious about when you pay from the wholesalers, I imagine they all have different terms. Are you able to use a credit card? Because I have like a lot of people use like a 2% credit card and that adds up substantially over the course of a year. Are
Yeah.
you able to pay with credit card?
For most of them, yes. I think I only have one that only takes ACH
Okay.
payments, but
Yeah.
everyone else, yeah, credit cards. But like you
Okay.
said, they'll charge you the 2-3%, whatever the fee is.
Yeah, I gotcha. And then you do naturally miss out on Rakuten and stuff like that for wholesale because that's not popping up for a little, there's no
Yeah.
pop-up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, cool. Trying to think, something was on the tip of my tongue there, but it might come back to me. Oh, let's talk about tools and softwares that you use. Is it similar to like an OA, or are there other things that, or just walk me through what you use?
Yeah. So as far as software, I mean, we have the Amazon seller account, we have
Yep.
inventory labs, we have 2D workflow, REPRICER, we have seller snap.
Okay.
What else? As far as our calculator, I mean, we've been using Inventory Labs Scout X calculator now. We
Yeah,
kind of canceled everything else because I mean we're getting it with the Inventory Lab. So
I love Inventory Lab. I love Scoutify too. I have to hop on the Scout X train, but yeah, I'm with you.
yeah, I mean, still missing a few bugs that I think it needs, but I think with time they'll work on
Yeah.
it hopefully. So
And is
as
that
far
pretty
as
much everything? Is that pretty much everything, would you say?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Seller Snap. I used to have Seller Snap and it's pricey. I think when I was doing it, it was like 500 bucks a month. Now I can see easily where you can make the argument for it if it increases sales and profit, by X amount and makes it worth it.
Right.
Do you see that? Have you considered? I use Profit Protector Pro now. I'm pretty happy with it, and it's 450 bucks cheaper a month. So I'm curious, like, is it a comfort thing? Do you love it? And I just kind of curious for anyone listening because I don't think many people use that.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely pricey for sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you actually, with PPP, how do you like it? Like, are you having to mess with it a lot still when you're repricing your stuff, or?
Yeah. So no, not really. Let me tell you kind of I'll give you a real quick story. So Seller Snap, I hopped on because learned about it in Hustle Buddies, right?
Right.
And anything that was said, I was kind of like, and now to be honest, and I mean this, I'm not throwing shade. Now I understand affiliate links and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm sure that has a great program and it's a great product, right? But what happened was there was like a glitch maybe a year ago for like a week or two. And it was such a noticeable decrease in sales, and they acknowledged that there was an error. And it's 500 bucks a month. And I reached out to them and it was like basically, I'm sure they got reached out by everyone, right? I was
Right.
basically like, I want a free month or two. Like, this is what my sales were. This is what they were when Seller Snap, we're paying for a premium product.
Right.
Basically, and by the way, very, very polite, but like, please make things right. And then they sent out a generic message. I think it was like 25% off one month, which is the equivalent of $125. And I had been thinking for a while it was expensive, and then that just pushed me over the edge. I was like, all right, we
Right.
got to move. So then I heard about Profit Protector Pro. I hardly go into it. It for me, the only learning curve was they have a lot of different like strategies, and I found that moderate ones you wouldn't get as much sales because they were really about maximizing profit. So what
Right.
I did for me, I'm not saying this is how everyone should do it. I found to use their highest aggressive uh um rule,
Right.
right? And then make sure my minimum is at a price that I am actually okay selling it at, because there's a good chance they're going to be really close to that, right? And so once I kind of figured that out, it's been great. I hardly go in. My sales, I don't feel like had any dip or anything after seller snap. There's a learning curve like anything I've suggested it to one or two other sellers that have liked it as well. But no, for me, I just think repricing is important in general
Yeah.
with OA because things are always fluctuating. So I do go in every week and go through, the items I have the most of in stock, but that's not because of PPP. I would do that regardless. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh,
So
okay, okay. No, yeah, that's true. I mean, kind of sounds similar to sellers and that, but I mean, I really don't mess with that either. Except for like you mentioned earlier too, right? Just to check on the inventory once a week in case
right.
my mints ended up going even lower for some reason.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, just having it hands off. I mean, that's a big plus for me because I've tried some of the items like Go Aura. It,
Yes.
it just felt too complicated for me. They had
Yeah.
so many things, so I didn't like it.
That was the first one that I used, and that was way too user intensive for me. And
Yeah,
that's why I went to Seller Snap because of the AI, right? And it's just like and PPP is the same. And I think Aura is actually coming out with something like that. But yeah, it was like way too much time consuming. But by the way, with wholesale, I would imagine that prices are more consistent, right?
yeah. For the most part, yeah, you definitely don't see no huge dips like oh way like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. And then by the way, so how and when and how do you approach getting discounts with some of these suppliers? Like, do you wait until you've placed 3 orders so that you have a leg to stand on? Or like, what does that look like?
You can go about it various ways. So you can definitely hold off on it after the first call, and you place maybe 2, 3 orders, and then after the fourth order, you could definitely bring it up. Uh,
Yeah,
Me personally, I kind of ask them upfront if they offer any type of discounts, just to see where they stand on that.
yeah,
Because before I tell them that, though, I also tell them how much we're doing in revenue, how much we spend on inventory. We're spending 50, 60,000. Can we expect at least a 10% discount of some sort?
right.
So, but that's just me, right? Like I
Yep.
said, you could definitely go either way.
Yeah. By the way, what's the largest purchase order you've placed?
It was Q4, probably like 12,000 for one
Yeah.
order.
Yeah. It's really crazy in this business how immune you become to like the
Yeah.
spending. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's it's wild. Like at first it's like, oh, is this even real? Like, can I sell this pool filter? Like I just bought 10 of them. Like I spent $200. I hope I get my money back. And now you're spending 12 grand in one pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I even spent 10,000 this morning before this call.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No.
and to me, it's like it's not enough.
Yeah. Listen, spending's great. I mean, spending means in theory you're making it, and like but speaking of that, I do like to ask people, and I'll let you go here in a minute, but I think it's just topical while we're on this subject. What did it take you a while to become comfortable with that? And or what are your thoughts or fears or lack thereof of deactivation, suspension? I'm just curious on your kind of take on all of that in general.
Okay, so we'll tackle on the spending first.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely scary at first, right? Especially if I mean, I don't know about most people, but like I don't really come from much money like that. So the $1,000 that I started this business with meant everything to me because
yeah,
I worked for that. So it definitely was more what do you call conservative being with that money.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, it definitely takes some time, but once you start growing, you start learning, you get more comfortable with spending more money. And that's after I had placed a $3,000 order on a wholesale purchase before, and those products all tank. And so that kind of it can kind of blow your confidence,
Yeah,
when that
sure.
happens. But yeah, with time, you start to realize that in order to grow the business, you need to spend more on the business to keep growing. So as soon as you get more comfortable, that's really all you really need to do in order to grow and scale. So
Yeah.
it just comes with time, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like anything, you just kind of it becomes natural, it becomes normal. And as far as, yeah, the suspension deactivation, and I say this, let me give you some background. When I started this, once in a while on Hustle Buddies, you see somebody mentioning, deactivation, this and that, and you're like, oh
Uh,
my gosh, I don't want to put all this in. And now my stance is these people, I would imagine 99% of them probably deserve it. Are there some horror stories? Probably. But I think if you do things the right way, like truthfully, almost nothing's insurmountable that you can't come back from it. Did you ever have concerns, and what's kind of your take on that?
yes, I honestly, I think we do think alike because I think the same thing. Like
Yeah,
if someone got their account suspended, deactivated, 99% of the time it's probably their own fault.
yeah, yeah,
Now, of course, there's always that 1% that they speak loud, it gets very known. So, it does bring some worries when doing this business.
right.
But I mean, for anyone looking to get into Amazon, if you haven't even started, then you're already deactivated to begin with.
Yeah,
You don't
you're
even
right.
have an account. So,
Yeah,
and that's something I think about every once in a while, right? Is that the chances of it happening could happen, but I think with Amazon's new what did it like the program they released with the account
yeah,
health now, I think that
yeah.
finally will cool off on just getting your account deactivated, assuming you're doing everything legit by the
Right,
book.
right. Do things the right way and put yourself in a position and document your stuff and invoices and stuff like that. So what's next for you? Like you strike me as someone that like you really enjoy Amazon and this is like you found your thing and like you want the warehouse and like tell me about maybe, where do you see yourself? What's the vision, the goal, if you have anything thought out?
Oh yeah, I mean it's already thought out in my head. I just need to apply it now. So I
Yeah,
mean, I doubt we'll ever stop doing Amazon anytime
right.
in the near future.
Yeah,
It's definitely a business that I want to keep as our main business long term. I do want to get into a warehouse, move our team over there, separate from having it here in the house,
yeah,
get our garage back and everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, long term, definitely add a few more employees, see where the business goes from there, open more wholesale accounts, be 100% wholesale by then,
Yep.
and really start outsourcing a lot of it, if not even the managing part out of it from me.
Yeah.
Already have a person in mind anyways for that. But yeah, and hopefully by then it's running on its own. The only thing I'm doing at that point is just reaching out to new suppliers and meeting up with them at that point, and then from there I can just focus on different revenue avenues if needed, like YouTube or real estate or just anything like that.
Yeah, 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 totally. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think about this a lot and I have a similar mindset, but I guess it's good now. It's good for the foreseeable future. I will say, I think that, uh, at least for me personally, it's like take whatever money you make and maybe park it into some other investments or assets, like, you know, um, because the fact of the matter is, ultimately, it still is a third party. And when you don't
Yeah,
have control, it could all, in theory, go away tomorrow. Do I think that's going to happen? Not anytime soon. It makes too much sense for Amazon. We carry the risk of the products, we carry the risk of the price taking.
mm,
They just get a cut, and by the way, well deserved, in my opinion. I'm just saying. So I don't think it's going anywhere. But I also think that, diversification is never a bad thing.
I agree. Yeah, and be diversified earlier than sooner, and that's perfectly fine too. It just depends what
Yeah.
your end goal is with this business,
Yep.
really. So
There's so many. Any advice to anyone that hasn't started yet or early on in the journey? Like, do you remember those early days?
I think about them probably every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just be patient. I mean, because this business is definitely more than just buy something and flip it. Like all these gurus, influencers make it out to be.
Yeah.
There's like a 99 other things within the business that you really have to consider with all the products, the business, taxes even.
Yeah.
So yeah, just take it one day at a time. You know, if it's not looking good one day, go at it the next day. And with time, you compound all that knowledge, all the skill sets, and
Yes.
before you know it, you're hitting big months,
Yeah. Compounding is a word that really comes to mind when I think about Amazon as a whole. Your skills, your sourcing, like it just gets easier and easier and easier the longer you're willing to do it. You don't need to put in 24 hours a day, but
Yeah.
keep showing up every day. And it's kind of crazy where it can take you in a relatively short period of time. I really like the saying patiently persistent,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean to sit back and wait and hope. You have to take action, but it isn't going to happen overnight either. You got to show up.
Yeah. And especially
So,
if you don't have loads of cash, I mean, it's gonna take even longer.
yes,
So
totally, totally. No, I agree. And yeah, where can people find you online?
Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, those are the main three platforms I say I get on.
Yep.
For DMs, probably more Instagram though.
Okay. And it's Oscar Martinez. I don't have my phone in front of me. Is it that you have numbers after that, right?
Yeah, on Instagram it's Oscar Martinez _ 817, and then I think it's the same on Twitter. No, on YouTube it's just my name. So
Okay. I'll link all that stuff below anyway. And yeah, man, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. I absolutely learned something and I enjoy following you. And I just really like your approach. No BS, hard work, making it happen and continued success to you.
yeah, thanks, man.
All right, man. Talk to you.
All right.